Hey, this is Mike Matthews with MuscleForLife.com, and in this short video I want to talk about fasted training, the pros and cons of it, and why I like to use it to help lose fat faster. So first off, what is fasted training? So fasted training is when you are training, whether it's cardio or weightlifting, you're exercising in a fasted state. And a fasted state is basically the state where your insulin levels are at a low baseline level, because what happens when you eat food is your body produces insulin. I guess the exception is dietary fat. Eating just dietary fat, if you were just to like drink some olive oil, the insulin response would be low. But if you eat protein and carbohydrate, your body produces insulin, your pancreas releases it into the blood, and insulin's job is to drive nutrients from the blood into the cells. So when you're in this fed state, when you've eaten food and your insulin levels are raised, basically your body's ability to break down fat cells, the process called lipolysis, is impaired. It doesn't completely shut off, but the higher insulin levels are, the less your body is going to its body fat for energy. And this makes sense, because why would it go to its energy stores, its fat, when it has food that it can, that's readily available, that it can use for energy? So, you eat some carbohydrate, it breaks down into glucose that makes its way into your blood. Your body can then use that glucose to run everything, and then it can store a bit of the excess as body fat using a process called de novo lipogenesis. So you eat food. Depending on the size of the meal and the composition of the meal, your insulin levels are going to remain elevated for a period of time until your body has absorbed all the nutrients that you just ate. And then your insulin levels are going to come down as your body is absorbing. There's less and less left in the blood. Insulin levels are coming down. And then when your body's done absorbing everything that you just ate, you're now in you enter what is known as the fasted state. Now that your body doesn't have any energy left in terms of glucose traveling around in the blood, it has to go to its fat stores for energy. And this is how the body juggles basically storing and burning fat. When you eat food, your body only needs a certain amount of energy per second to remain alive, right? When you eat a meal, you're giving it a lot more energy than it needs, to stay alive over the course of the next few hours that it takes to process the meal. So what it does with a percentage of the excess energy is it stores it as body fat. The process whereby it stores like the different macronutrients as body fat, these processes are different. For instance, I mentioned de novo lipogenesis. That's the process whereby the body converts glucose into body fat. That is different than the process whereby the body converts dietary fat to body fat. Ironically, carbs are the big enemy these days, and insulin's the big enemy, and blah, blah, blah. A lot of bad science is used to convince people that carbohydrates are what make you fat and that insulin is evil and blah, blah, blah. But ironically, the process, de novo lipogenesis, the process of converting glucose into body fat, actually is the energy cost in research has been shown to be about 25%. So about 25% of the energy in a gram of carbohydrate is used to just turn it into body fat. And once again, we're talking about excess energy here, which, when you're looking at it over the course of 24 hours, again, the only thing that can cause you to gain fat is to give your body quite a bit more energy than it actually needed. But when we look at it just on a very tiny scale, when your body is going to convert a gram of carbohydrate into body fat, it's just not very efficient. Because it costs quite a bit of energy to turn that molecule of glucose into a lipid, because your body has to change the actual molecular structure. Whereas dietary fat, the molecular structure is similar to body fat, so very similar actually. So the energy cost of that is very low. Research has shown it's about 0 to 3%, meaning that your body is able to store dietary fat as body fat very efficiently. And that's one of the purposes of dietary fat, is to keep our body fat levels where they need to be, because if they drop too low, you just die. Obviously, like as a guy, if you get down to 3 or 4% body fat, you're going to be in the hospital. You're probably going to die. I think there was one of these like fitness guru guys. Was it Joseph Rackage? I think had that. He like landed himself in the hospital because he got down to like 4% body fat or something. I think it was him. Anyway, so when you eat a bunch of food, your body is in a fed state, insulin levels are raised, it's storing body fat, and then once it's done, it then has to flip over to burning body fat to get energy. That's the fasted state. And body fat is the first place that it goes to for energy. Also, there's glycogen stored in the liver, which is also used. But muscle is preserved, and it takes quite a bit of. If you were to fast for, actually, I have an article on fasting and intermittent fasting in general, which I'll link down below. But if I remember correctly, it's at about the 16 to 17 hour mark, somewhere around there, where the body, if you don't eat, the body can start turning to muscle to get energy. But it's definitely at the 24 hour mark. So it takes quite a bit of fasting to start burning, to start eating away muscle. So that's fasted versus fed, and your body's juggling those states of storing fat and burning fat. And as a quick aside, that's when we're talking about net fat loss or net fat gain over time. Really, what you're talking about is to gain fat, you have to eat enough food, right, to store more fat than your body is burning when it's in a fasted state, or if it's burning through exercise. When your insulin levels are elevated, your body can burn fat if it needs more energy, but it just is not going to burn as much fat as it's going to burn when it's in a fasted state. So why train fasted? I'm going to link an article down below which goes into a bit more of the science of it and dives into a couple studies, but basically research shows that when you are exercising, when you're putting energy demands on your body, when it's in a fasted state, it burns a bit more body fat than in a fed state. This just makes sense based on what I explained earlier. If your body has a bunch of energy available, it's going to use that preferentially over body fat. So if it doesn't have food energy available, it really can only go to body fat for energy. And also, like I said, glycogen, in the liver, and then there's also glycogen in the muscles, which is involved in more high, like anaerobic type stuff like weightlifting and high intensity interval training and stuff like that. Now, it's not, I wouldn't say fasted training it doesn't make a huge difference. It's not necessary. You can still get very lean without training fasted. But where I've found fasted training particularly helps is getting rid of stubborn fat. And stubborn fat for us guys is the lower abs, kind of that, just that area, that strip around the bottom of our torso. And I'll link an article down below that I wrote on stubborn fat, so you can get if you want to learn more about that. But basically, there are fat cells in the body that are more resistant to being mobilized. And one of the issues, and one of the reasons for this is because blood flow is impaired to these areas. You've probably noticed, if you're a girl, your stubborn areas are your hips and thighs are generally the stubborn areas for girls. And these are the last areas to really get lean on your body. And you also notice that they tend to be colder to the touch than other areas where you can lose fat faster. And blood flow is a very important part of fat loss, because the chemicals that your body produces, called catecholamines, these chemicals that mobilize fat cells, they travel in your blood. So if an area of your body isn't getting as much blood flow as another, then not as many of these chemicals, these molecules of these chemicals, can reach the area to actually mobilize the fat cells. So one of the things that research has shown with fasted training is that it can increase blood flow, particularly to the abs area, especially the lower abs and lower abdomen. So that can help with just getting rid of stubborn fat. And also, one of the things I like about fasted training is you can take a supplement called YOHIMBINE, which I'll link down below as well, which only works in a fasted state, but works particularly well for speeding up the loss of stubborn fat. Now, one of the downsides to fasted training is research shows that muscle breakdown is accelerated when you exercise in a fasted state. And of course, we want some muscle breakdown for weightlifting. That's what we're trying to achieve, is damaging one of the things we're trying to achieve is damage our muscle cells, so the body can then repair them, make them bigger and stronger. But if you get too much protein degradation, if you break down too many muscle cells in a workout, then you can basically cause more damage than your body's able to repair over the course of the next 24 to 36 hours. And in that case, that's just like how Fat loss and fat gain is just the difference between, like, net fat loss and fat gain is just the difference between how much fat your body stores when you eat and how much fat it burns when you're not eating and when you're moving around. Net muscle loss and muscle gain is the difference between protein degradation and protein synthesis. So you're breaking down protein cells in your muscles through things like exercise, and you're building it up through proper nutrition and proper rest. And if your body is able to synthesize more proteins, then it's lost, then you've just built muscle. And on the flip side, if you've broken down more muscle cells than your body's able to replace, you've lost muscle. So one of the things you have to watch out for with fasted training is you don't want to do it on a completely empty stomach of nothing. So what can you do to counteract this muscle loss? You can use basically one of three supplements: BCAAs, branched chain amino acids, or you can use just leucine, which is one of the BCAAs, and it's really the one that matters the most. The other two are isoleucine and valine, and isoleucine is kind of like a weaker leucine, and valine is just kind of worthless for this purpose. Because what you want with the leucine is leucine stimulates protein synthesis is what it does. So when you take leucine or BCAAs, you're getting it through BCAAs, before you do your fasted training, it basically starts stimulating protein synthesis, which then mitigates or balances out the fact that the protein degradation rates are going to be higher during your workout. So that's one thing you can do. And then the third supplement is HMB, which is a metabolite of leucine, which is it's a molecule that when you ingest leucine, it's one of the molecules it breaks down into. HMB is very overhyped these days. I mean, it's sold as like this amazing muscle builder, and that's not true. That's not what the research shows. But it does show that it's anti-catabolic, and it's more anti-catabolic than leucine. So again, it's good for this use, but if you're not training fasted, HMB is probably not going to do anything for you. There are some studies that show that it's such an amazing muscle builder, but these studies, there are funding biases. I mean, they're funded by the guy that owns the patent, so not really surprised that they're showing amazing results. And I think the most recent study I saw on HMB, the results claimed were like better than what you'd even find in research on steroids. So what are we supposed to think about that? I don't know. Anyway, personally, I just use leucine 3 to 5 grams before fasted training. And also I like to take a pre-workout as well, and that's fine. It's very few. I think it's like 5 calories, 10 calories per serving. And that brings me to one other point with fasted training is you can't have any food, obviously. You can have, generally, the general recommendations are if you keep your calories, between 30 and 40 and below, then you're going to be fine. Like some people, if let's say you like to have some coffee before you work out, that's fine. Coffee is a 0-calorie beverage. And if you like to put, let's say like, I don't even drink coffee, so I don't know what the calories are and stuff, something like half and half, but something that's kind of fatty, and you put a little bit in there, and it's just 20 calories worth, or maybe it's a little bit of sweetener or something like that. That's totally fine, but you can't have food. Even a scoop of protein is going to break the fasted state, because protein is actually more insulinogenic than white bread, research has shown, meaning that you get a rapid rise of insulin levels when you have whey protein. Did I say whey? Well, whey protein in particular, I don't know if I said that, is more insulinogenic, not protein in general. But there is an acute insulin response to whey protein. So you can't have a protein shake if you want to train truly in a fasted state. Now, the reality is if you were to have just a scoop of protein, your insulin levels are not going to spike nearly as high as if you had like a full pre-workout meal with 100, let's say 70 grams of carbs as well, and your insulin levels are going to come down probably within a couple hours back to baseline. But that's why if you want to train fasted and you want to include this in your weight loss routine, then you're going to want to use leucine or BCAAs. Personally, I just use leucine because it's cheaper, and it tastes terrible, but I just mix it with my pre-workout, 3 to 5 grams, and that's it. One other thing to keep in mind about fasted training is that some people just don't do well with it. Some people, you can expect to be a little bit weaker if you're used to having a bunch of carbs before training, because carbohydrate is the best pre-workout molecule there is, really, probably carbohydrate and caffeine. So if you're used to eating, 70 grams of carbs before you train, and then you start training fasted, you're going to be weaker. And it's not because you've lost muscle or anything else. It's just because your body doesn't have that energy available. And some people, like I lose a little bit of strength when I train fasted, but some people, otherwise I do fine. I feel fine. I don't get dizzy. I don't have any energy problems really. But some people just don't do well with it, and I'm not exactly sure why. They'll either get lightheaded or they'll lose a lot of strength, have no energy. So if it's not for you, it's not for you. You can give it a try. And if you feel good and you're a little bit down on your reps, is what I find that I lose probably a few reps across the board when I'm training fasted. If I were to have carbs for, I'm going to get a few more reps with my given weights. So yeah, if you do all with it, then I recommend you include it, especially if you're getting lean already. Like if you're a guy and you're around 10%, or if you're a girl and you're around 20% and you want to get really lean, I definitely recommend it. It speeds up the loss of stubborn fat. All right, I hope you liked the video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be doing these types of videos every week or two. And also I put up my podcast, and I'm going to get more active on YouTube. It's on the list. I have a lot of things on my list, but I'm going to have some more cool stuff coming, especially next year. For now, I'm going to keep on trying to be helpful. So, you can always leave me comments below. I answer everything. You can also ask me questions over on my website. I answer everything there as well. So, yeah, I hope you liked the video, and see you next time.